The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up today using promo code SGPN and then go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/dog to enter our bonus contest. 5 winners will receive hats, shirts, and a $50 SGPN gift card. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, sports enriched platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Out the Hall of Fame Bets app for the bets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently very early, March 1st, right after midnight. I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again, going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode. We have 6 matches to preview. We have 2 semifinal matches in Dubai and 4 quarterfinal matches in Santiago. So we're going to preview all 6. However, I am going to admit that we are missing 2 lines in Santiago. I waited for as long as I could, but unfortunately, we did not get lines on the Baez match as well as the Darderi match. So because of that, we are going to cover them anyway, but we have no betting lines, so we might have to briefly go over those matches because we don't know exactly what we're looking at in terms of where the value might be based on the odds which are not available. So either way, I wanted to mention that as a full just PSA. Now it's time to actually get into the recap. A reminder, by the way, if you are new to the show, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Also, don't forget to rate and review on Spotify or Apple. Not many reviews recently, so if you are still consuming this on Spotify or Apple, please do me a solid and leave a rating and a review. Also, a reminder, if you are a fan of the show and you want to support it, you can buy merch for the show on the SGPN website. They have a merch store, and they have Tennis Gambling Podcast merch, t-shirts, mugs, etc. So if you don't want to support the show, you know where to find some merch. Either way, though, point is time to get into the recap of the matches on Thursday. Starting off with the Lock and Dog recap. Overall, a good episode for us. Not a sweep, but we did go undefeated. For the lock, ended up having a push, kind of a lucky push there, with Bublik and Leheshka with the over 22.5 games at minus 135. Leheshka seemed a bit out of it all match long. Then he ended up getting broken a couple times in the second set and decided, you know what, I can't be out here anymore. And he ended up quitting. So his retirement saved us because the bet got voided. So kind of a lucky tie there, but still works for us. We will take the push in that spot any day of the week. For the dog, though, had a nice win. Definitely not an easy one, but Humbert got the job done on the money line at plus 110. Had to fight off a couple of match points in the tiebreaker. I believe he fought off 3 match points before eventually winning the breaker. And then he broke Hurkacz a couple of times in the third set en route to a nice comeback win. So overall, once again, a nice episode. Ended up going 1-0-1 on the Lock and Dog picks because we got a push for the lock. So overall, nice episode. Besides that, though, to quickly go through the actual Thursday matches, did basically cover 2 of them in Dubai already because the Lock and Dog picks were both from Dubai. So starting off with the first 2 matches in Dubai, you had 2 retirements in the second set. You had Bublik and Rublev winning courtesy of retirement because Leheshka got injured and ended up retiring, and Korda ended up hurting his abdomen, I believe, and he ended up retiring down a set and a game in the second set. Now, Korda had won the previous round against Dzanchuk 6-1, 6-0, so you figured Korda was in great form physically. That's the Korda experience, kind of summed up in the span of 24 hours. He could look really good one day, and the next thing you know, he's retiring in matches he's losing in. Yeah, not exactly an ideal ending for Korda, who was looking pretty sharp in Dubai. He's had a really bad start to 2024, and he was in great form. He only dropped 3 games combined in the first 2 rounds here, and then ended up retiring against Rublev, and he just can't beat Rublev in general. Point is, though, Korda ended up losing, and so did Leheshka. As for the other 2 matches, they were completed. The first one was not that competitive as Medvedev beat Fokina comfortably, 6-2, 6-3. Not a shock there. We did lean to Medvedev minus 1.5 sets. It was, I think, minus 140, but Fokina, just too much of a head case for me to actually trust. And Medvedev was extremely solid as he got the job done there in straight sets. Then you had the Humbert comeback, which cashed the dog pick for us as he was down a set and ended up winning the breaker 10-8, fought off a couple match points, and then won the third set 6-3. Easily the match of the day, so nice win for him. Moving on to the matches in Santiago, you had Darderi beating Cerundolo in 3 as they alternated 6-3s throughout the entire match. Munar beat Ramos Vinolas in straight sets convincingly 6-3, 6-1. Vinolas might be good in the first round of clay events, but he's well past his prime, and it seems like we've noticed for a couple of players, including him, some guys just at this stage in their careers can't exactly reset and immediately come back out for the second match in a tournament and look as sharp as it did in the first. And you saw Munar look comfortable, and he just looked like the sharper player throughout as he won comfortably. Baez got off to a bad start against Varias. He was up in the first set by a break, and he had 2 break points, actually, to go up a double break. Could not convert. Then you had a break fest, and eventually Varias did win the last couple games there to win the first set. But Baez came back and ended up winning 6-4, 6-2 in the final 2 sets. And Tabilo ended up beating Barrios Vera in straight sets, 6-2, 7-5. So in the battle of Chileans, the favorite ended up winning that one. So pretty straightforward day in Santiago, a couple of 3-setters, but mostly chalk. I believe the favorites won all 4 of those matches. And moving on to Acapulco, you had, I'm trying to think of all the matches that took place. So Draper beat Kekmanovic early in the morning. So did Ruud. Ruud beat Lajovic. You had Dimenauer finally beating Tsitsipas. Congratulations, Dimenauer. You had lost, I think it was 11 straight against Tsitsipas, and you finally got the job done. The head-to-head was 12-1. Now it is 12-2. So nice comeback there by Dimenauer. Lost the first set 6-1. You thought, here we go again. And Dimenauer showed his resolve and his improved overall skill set as he was able to beat Tsitsipas in 3. Rune ended up beating Kempfer in 2 tie breaks, and Ruud is currently playing against Shelton. He's up a break in the first set, so I'm not going to be able to recap that match. But the point is, it should be a good one. Would not shock me if that one goes on for an hour or 2 longer. Now, besides that, nothing else to really recap. Matches were kind of straightforward. And the match of the day, unless the Shelton-Ruud match turns into a crazy one, technically that's a Friday match anyway. So I guess it doesn't even count for Thursday. But either way, Humbert-Hurkacz was easily the best match of the day. Now, moving on to the actual purpose of this episode, going to get into some matches. Starting off with Dubai, we're going to go through the 2 semis, then the 4 quarters in Santiago. Starting off with the first match, you have Rublev taking on Bublik, which should be a fun match, but Rublev is a massive favorite of about minus 343. Bublik is about plus 273. As for the game spread, Rublev minus 3.5 is minus 105. Bublik plus 3.5 is minus 115. If you want to get into the over-under, that is available at 22.5. The over is minus 110. The under is minus 110. For set wagering, you can find Rublev in straight sets at even money. Bublik to win a set at minus 130. And Bublik to win in straight sets at 6-1. The over-under for sets, the over is, for 2.5, is plus 150. Now, they faced off a couple of times last year on grass still. Point is, they faced off 2 times last year. And those matches were competitive. In fact, they did go to 3 sets. Rublev ended up winning the Wimbledon Marathon, and you saw Bublik win the match in Halle. Point is, though, we know grass is Bublik's best surface, but he has given Rublev some problems in the past, and they do have a pretty long history against each other. So it would not shock me if Bublik's able to make this match interesting. I'm not going to pick Rublev to win. I mean, I'm not going to pick Bublik to win, but I do think that Rublev's a bit too hefty of a favorite here. Minus 343 just feels massive to me, especially since Medvedev in the other match was minus 275. I just feel like Rublev should be closer, in my opinion, to 220, give or take. I feel like this line's disrespectful to Bublik, so based on where the line is located, I think there has to be value on Bublik. I just think Bublik's been in good enough form where he can beat anybody, especially in tie breaks, because he's been solid in breakers so far in Dubai. He's 3-0 in tie breaks in this event. While you're looking at Rublev, and Rublev lost the only breaker he was in against Zhang in the first set of this event. Point is, though, the head-to-head, Rublev's been better, but it's been close in some of these matches, especially the last couple of head-to-heads. So I do think there's some value on Bublik plus the games. I know he's a head case, and you might end up having to worry about him punting a set, because he always does. But still, Bublik's been sharper. He was dropping first sets left and right. Then he kind of got back on track, beat Griekspoor in straight sets, and beat Leheshka in what should have been straight sets before Leheshka eventually retired. But the point is, Rublev is the better player. I'm not denying that. But do I think this line is a bit steep? Yes. I think this line is a little bit too big. I'm going to lean to Bublik because of it. I don't mind the over in this match as well. I do think you might see Bublik showcase the serve, which has translated well to the fast courts in Dubai. And I do think his overall unorthodox play style can keep Rublev off balance. If the drop shots are on, Rublev's not the most comfortable charging to the net. And I do think Bublik can exploit that as well as the lob game. The point is, Bublik has a lot of variety, and Rublev really does not. So I can see some moments where if Rublev's forehand or backhand goes haywire, you might see Bublik capitalize on it for 20 minutes or so en route to winning a set. So I am going to lean to the over in this match at 22.5. Bublik can go to a breaker. You might get this in straight sets, or maybe it goes 3. I'm going to lean to Rublev to win, but I think Bublik is definitely more alive than the odds suggest. So I don't see much value on Rublev in this match, but I'm going to lean to the over because of it. Now, moving on to the next match, you have another massive favorite, but not as big as the first match. You have Medvedev at minus 275, and Humbert is plus 230. As for the game spread, Medvedev minus 3.5 games is minus 105. Humbert plus 3.5 is minus 115. Over-under in games is set at 22.5. It is juiced to the under, though, at minus 119, and the over is set at minus 101. For the actual set wagering, Medvedev in straight sets is even money. Humbert plus 1.5 sets is minus 130. And if you do want to bet on the match to go 3, you can find that at plus 155. Now, Humbert, surprising to some, might actually be a little bit disrespected here because he's 2-1 in the head-to-head. Now, they faced off on clay in 2020, where Medvedev was still atrocious on clay. You can argue he still is, even though he won a Masters 1000 title last year. It's on clay. I'm going to toss it out. They faced off in the ATP Cup in 2022, and Humbert did win in 3, 6-7, 7-5, 7-6. Phenomenal match. Humbert did play extremely well in that breaker en route to the win. And they faced off in Beijing last year, and Medvedev did win in 3, 6-4, 3-6, 6-1. Now, for the actual performances in this event, Medvedev's been good. He was a bit vulnerable in the first round against Shevchenko, as he was down a break in the second set and had to rally to win in straights, and you ended up seeing him lose the first set to Sonego before responding well and winning the next 2 sets. Then he beat Fokina comfortably in the Thursday match in straight sets. Now, as for Humbert, he's been good. He's been a little bit dicey, though, because he lost the first set to Monfils, 1-3, beat Murray, who's on the verge of retirement, and probably should have lost to Hurkacz, but ended up fighting off 3 match points as he won that one in 3. Point is, based on the head-to-head, you can argue that Humbert is actually live here, and that this price is a bit disrespectful. I'm not going to agree with that narrative. I was kind of just stating it for the sake of stating it, but I do think Medvedev should win in straight sets. It seems like Medvedev was battling a bit of a shoulder issue earlier in the event, but he seems pretty fine right now. You saw Humbert have a bit of a war yesterday. Not the longest match, though, because we know with Hurkacz being involved, his service points don't take too long. Both guys love to rally. You should see a very long match in terms of time per point. But Medvedev, I do think, is the better player. And if Medvedev can neutralize the, I'd say, slide serve out wide, I do think that Medvedev has an edge here, especially since Humbert is not the most comfortable with passing shots and not the most comfortable at the net. So I do think you're looking at a spot where Medvedev can stand well behind the baseline. Humbert is really not going to come forward much at all, and Medvedev will be able to outlast him because he should. He outlasts everybody because we know that Medvedev is one of the best ralliers on the entire tour. So I do think Humbert is probably going to lose in straight sets if I just had to guess how this match plays out. Might be competitive. I do see a decent amount of breaks in this match, though, just based on the length per point. I do think you're going to see a lot of baseline rallies. And because of that, you might see a lot of, I don't want to say meaningless serves, but a lot of serves that don't do much of an impact besides getting the rally started. So I am going to go with the Medvedev straight set play here at even money. I lean to it against Fokina. Kind of the same argument. I just think that Medvedev's too rock solid for Humbert to handle. He's played great tennis. I get it. The last 2 matches were very competitive, but I do think that Medvedev is just the better player, and I think he's going to show it in this match. I do like the no tiebreaker angle, though, at minus 130. You're looking at the head-to-head meetings, and yes, the Davis Cup, the ATP Cup matchup in 2022 did have a couple breakers. Beijing match did not. You're looking at the matches in Dubai. You saw only 1 tiebreak against Hurkacz in 3 sets. It's actually not that bad for Humbert, but that's the only breaker he's been in this event in 8 sets. Medvedev has not been to a breaker yet in this tournament, and I expect to see some breaks. So I'm a fan of no tiebreaker in the match at about minus 130, but I'm going to go with Medvedev. Even money on the best player here. I just think that is definitely the way to go for value. Humbert might keep it close, maybe, but I do think Medvedev's too solid, and I think we'll get the job done in this spot. Moving on to Santiago, we're going to look at the first match, and we have no lines, which is kind of weird because we have lines on the second match and the fourth match on the schedule. But the early match, the odds makers decided, you know what, we're good. We're just not going to post any lines on it. So we got Munar against Baez, and yeah, the end. I don't have any lines to go through. But to go through the head-to-head between them, Munar is currently up 1-0, faced off in Buenos Aires in 2021, and he won via retirement in the third set. It means nothing. Baez off of an ATP 500 title in Rio, looked pretty bad to end the first set against Varias, but then looked sharp in the final two sets. And Munar has been very solid. Beat Zapata Miralles in straight sets and beat Ramos Vinolas in straight sets in this event. So I do think Baez is going to be a decent favorite here. And I think the argument is that Munar has value. Now, I don't know what the lines are going to be, so I'm not going to try to speculate, but Baez should be a decent favorite, in my opinion, just based on how well he's played recently off of an ATP 500 title. Munar's been good here, just simply put. I think that his game translates well. The courts in Santiago are abysmal, so I do think Munar just can handle the overall, I'd say, inconsistency of the bounces a bit better than Baez. That was kind of giving Baez some problems early in that match against Farias. I'm going to link to Munar, though. I just think his current form's solid. He's not dropped a set yet, and I do think there's some value on him. It's going to be close. I'll lean to the over in sets. I'll lean to the over in games, but I do think that Munar will probably have some value in what should be a pretty close to a coin flip match, in my opinion. But Baez will be priced a certain way, and I do expect Munar to be disrespected by that price. I'm going to lean to Munar for the value, and I'll lean to the over as well. Moving on to the next match, you have Fils taking on Martinez. Now you're looking at Fils being about a minus 211 favorite. Martinez is around plus 181. As to the game spread, Fils minus 3 is minus 105. Martinez plus 3 is minus 115. Over under game to set at 22.5. The under is minus 120. The over is even money. For set wagering, the over 2.5 sets is plus 130. Fils to win in straight sets is plus 140. Martinez to win a set is minus 170. And Martinez to win in straight sets is plus 350. Now, Fils was in really bad form to start 2024. Then he killed one of our outrights as we ended up having Seaboth Wild, who he buried 6-3, 6-3. Martinez, though, the former champion, has looked sharp here. Ended up beating Pissarro in straight sets, and he beat Diaz Acosta in 3 sets. Competitive match there, 1-7-6, 6-7, 6-1. Martinez, though, has been in good form. I do think Fils is the more talented player, but he's won one match here. Like, I just have a hard time fully trusting him in the spot, especially at this price. Is he going to win? Probably. Should he be minus 211? No. I think that line's too big. I think it should be closer to minus 150, just based on Martinez's success here in the past and the present. I am going to lean to Martinez plus the games, though. I just think 3 is too many. I can see a marathon. I do think Martinez's game translates well to the courts here. Fils looked good, but I kind of need to see more from a bigger sample size perspective into this environment. I am going to link to Martinez, who's been coming to this event for a while, former champion, and I do think that he's in line to keep it interesting. So I'll lean to the over. I'll lean to the underdog plus the games. Over 2.5 sets, I don't mind. But beating Diaz Acosta, good win. We know how good of a form he was in on clay since he actually won ATP title a couple of weeks ago. I'll lean to Martinez for the sake of the value, but I do think Fils probably finds a way to get it done. If he loses, though, would I be shocked? Absolutely not. Now, moving on to the next match, you have a matchup between Darderi and Tabilo. Darderi, of course, the champion in Cordoba, so another champion on clay earlier this year. Tabilo has the home country advantage because he is Chilean, so you might see Tabilo being a somewhat decent favorite here. I'm not sure how big of a favorite, but if I had to guess, I'd assume Tabilo is going to be a slight favorite in this match. Darderi, though, has been in good form, ended up beating Cerundolo in 3 in the match on Thursday, and he ended up beating Bagnis in a rematch of that Cordoba final in 3, and that ended up being a marathon 7-6, 6-7, 7-6. So 2 very long matches for Darderi, but he's been on the right side of both of them. As for Tabilo, ended up losing to Seaboth Wild immediately in Rio, and then ended up facing off against Barrios Vera in his first match in Santiago. I'm not going to read much into it. I do not think Barrios Vera is that good of a player, just watching him play. I think he's pretty average. I think he's a challenger level player that occasionally makes it to ATP clay events, but he's not very good, just simply put. So I'm not going to read too much into the Tabilo win. Pontus Tabilo did win a title earlier this year, though, on hard court. I believe it was Auckland, which I think he won. But the point is, on clay this year, he's usually solid. This year, not so much. You're looking at his performances, ended up splitting in Buenos Aires, losing to Lajovic, lost to Seaboth Wild. So he's currently 2-2 on clay this year. Not exactly ideal. Yes, the home court's going to be a factor because he's going to have the home crowd advantage, but Darderi's been really, really good. He won his first ever ATP tournament, and he's just a sharp guy. I underestimated him in Cordoba because I kind of had to. I didn't know much about him. But watching him play, he's consistent, he's solid, and he's clutch. He seems to be very solid in big points. I do think that it's going to be a close match. I like the over. We've seen Darderi go to 3 sets in each of the first 2 rounds here, and I do think Tabilo's game can be pretty up and down over the course of matches. I do think that's going to be a close one. I'll lean to the over. I'm going to lean to Darderi. I just think he's the slightly better player, but I do think there's some value on the over. This might be another marathon. Strap in. Should be a fun match. And moving on to the last match, you have another Chilean as a massive favorite here, as Jarry's against Moutet. Moutet is our only, actually no, we got buys as well. But Moutet is our long shot for the event. We have him at 40-1, and he's still here, so can't complain too much. We got a 40-1 shot in the quarters. Hopefully he'll make something happen. Will he? Probably not. Now, Jarry is a massive favorite at minus 420. Moutet is plus 340. For the game spread, Jarry is minus 4. Moutet is plus 4. It's minus 120 on Jarry, even money on Moutet. Over-under for games is set at 22. The over is even money. The under is minus 120. As for the set wagering, over 2.5 sets is plus 175. Jarry to win in straight sets is minus 145. And Moutet to win a set is plus 115. Now, they faced off a couple of times in their careers. Jarry is 3-0. To go through the actual matchups, though, faced off on grass last year, Jarry won 6-3, 7-5. Faced off on clay in 2022 in Moutet's home country, actually, and Jarry won 7-5, 6-1. And they faced off on hard court in 2018. Jarry won 7-6, 6-3. So one common theme, regardless of surface, there has been at least one 7-5 or 7-6 set. So if you want to make a case for Jarry over 12.5 games, you can make an argument. It's minus 140, though, so I really don't like that price. Do I think Moutet's going to win? No. I think Moutet's unique play style does translate well to the really bad court quality on Santiago, on the Santiago courts, because you're looking at the slices and the weird spins he puts on the ball, and with the just inconsistent bounces, it bodes well for him. Having said that, Jarry's serve and his overall just firepower is going to kick up so high on the court, and Moutet is such a small guy based on stature. I'm having a hard time picturing Moutet having a ton of success in the return game unless he stands way back on the court. And Jarry, if that's the case, should actually charge the net more and do some serve and volley. But you're looking at how the court is played. Topspin's played well, and it seems like the ball is really jumping off the court. And Moutet is relatively short. He's 5'11". And when you have a big server on this overall court as your opponent, it's not a good combo for you as a returner. Moutet's also not a big server. Jarry hits a lot of unforced errors. That can be an issue for him. But I just think Jarry is going to just hit it, just knock it around the court. I just think that he's going to make Moutet run a lot. I think he's going to be able to come forward, and I do think he'll be able to serve well. I think Jarry probably wins in straight sets. Is it going to be close? Maybe one set, but I just think it's a bad matchup for Moutet. He's got to make it very, very unorthodox. He's got to try to really lean into his variety and try to just make weird bounces and force Jarry to hit a bunch of unforced errors. That's his only hope of winning. Do I think he'll be able to do that? Maybe at times, but the serve is not going to be good enough, and I think Jarry's serve will be good enough. I got to go with Jarry, probably in straight sets. I hope I'm wrong. 40-1. We got a long shot in the quarters. I can't really ask for much more, but I do think Jarry is the better player. I think that he's going to be comfortable here. He's the defending champion, and he has home court advantage. I just think his overall, I'd say, talent is really just too much for Moutet to handle here, and I expect him to get overpowered. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual previews of the Friday matches. Now it is time for the Lock and Dog picks, but before we continue that, going to have a quick word from our sponsors. We're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and it's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry. They also have great pick'em games, so you can pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stat totals in their upcoming games. You also can make a lot of money because you can win up to 100 times your money in a single night. Pick between 2 and 5 players to build a pick'em entry. Can also make rivals picks, which pits two players against each other. So you can choose, for example, in a basketball game, which player will have more points. You could also look at some tennis. They have some interesting options on the platform. They have aces, they have double faults, a lot of creative options to look into. But a reminder to sign up today with the promo code SGPN to get a first deposit doubled up to $100, as well as an instant pick'em special. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with the promo code SGPN to get your first deposit doubled up to $100 with an instant pick'em special. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Also, a reminder that SGPN is teaming up with Underdog to give you even more of a bonus. Sign up between now and the end of the month, and 5 winners will receive an Underdog hat, Underdog shirt, and a $50 SGPN gift card. Sign up today using promo code SGPN, and then go to sportsgamepodcast.com/dog to enter the contest for your chance to win. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NBA season with Hall of Fame Bets. Sports analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NBA and soccer with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets' Revolution Props lines are told to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users reaching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the app or visit hopebets.com and use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the 2 semifinal matches in Dubai and the 4 quarterfinal matches in Santiago for Friday. Now it is time for the lock and dog picks. Starting off with the lock, I am going to go with a prop, actually, a play that I've not given out for a while, but I do like it in the spot. I am going to go to Dubai for both the lock and dog picks again, coincidentally. For the lock, though, I am going to go to the Humbert and Medvedev match. Give me the under half a tiebreak at minus 130. I do think there's a couple of reasons why I'm not expecting a breaker in this spot. First reason, both guys really not actually used to seeing many breakers recently. Humbert has not had a tiebreaker in 13 of his last 14 sets. The only exception was against Hurkacz, who's an absolute tiebreak machine, and that ended up going to a breaker as well in that second set on Thursday. So even the one that he had was against the biggest tiebreaker magnet in the entire tour. Besides that, though, he's had a lot of pretty straightforward sets because he's not the greatest server. He's a good returner, and Medvedev has been returning very well. I expect to see breaks, and you're looking at Humbert not having many breakers. 13 of 14, no tiebreak. As for Medvedev, he actually won up Humbert. He said, hold my beer. He has not had a breaker in 13 straight sets. So the point is Medvedev and Humbert have been strangers to breakers recently, and it's minus 130 for no breaker. Medvedev might win in straight sets, so I do think you might end up seeing a shorter match. If it goes long, though, I do think it is still possible to get what happened in Beijing last year, where you go 3 and none of the sets had more than 10 games. Point is, I do expect to see break points. I expect to see service trouble for both guys at times. But I do think that the under half a breaker at minus 130 in what could be a straightforward straight set win for Medvedev, kind of like the match against Fokina on a Thursday. I like the value at minus 130. It's one thing if you expect a breaker because you're not sure how many breaks you're going to get in a set and you think that you can see each player holding 6 games in a row. I definitely do not see each player holding 6 games in a row in this match. Now, if you get to a breaker because each player breaks once in a set or twice in a set, it's unlucky. It is what it is. But the point is, I don't see each player holding on a regular basis in this match, and I'll take my chances because of it. Give me the under half a tiebreak in the Medvedev-Humbert match as my lock at minus 130. For my dog, I am going to stick with the Dubai matches. I probably would have taken the over 2.5 sets in the Tabilo match against Darderi. I don't have odds on that. The odds are not up, so I can't take it, but that would have been my initial choice. However, I'll stick with what we actually have for prices. I am going to go with the Bublik and Rublev over 2.5 sets at plus 150. Simply put, plus 150 feels a bit steep to me, especially since the 2 meetings last year did go to a deciding set. Yes, both meetings were on grass, including Wimbledon, but the point is each player has had success against the opponent here, and you're looking at Bublik serving well. We know that he can show variety, which can give Rublev some problems, and I do think that Bublik's been pretty clutch in some big moments, and we have seen him thrive in tie breaks, which can be a reason why he's able to sneak away with the set. Bublik is currently 3-0 in breakers in Dubai so far, while Rublev is 0-1. But Rublev, we know, is in solid form. He's won basically 6 straight sets, technically 5 because we saw Quarter retire midway through the second set on Thursday. The point is, though, plus 150 for what I think is a pretty, I don't want to say even match, but I think it's more even than what the odds makers suggest. I mentioned the odds before. I just don't believe that Rublev should be minus 343. I just think that line's absurd. I think that Bublik is being disrespected here. I just think when you're looking at this overall matchup, I think Bublik, based on the history and the fact that each of the last 2 meetings did go to 5, or did go to a deciding set, including Wimbledon, which went to 5, different surface, but we know Bublik will not be afraid or intimidated by Rublev. He's going to come in there trying to pull off the upset, and I think he might make it interesting on occasion for at least a set. But I think plus 150 is a very good value play. I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets as a result as my dog. So once again, the picks for the show. The lock is going to be on a prop. I'm going to take Umber and Medvedev under half a breaker in their match at minus 130. And my dog will be on Bublik and Rublev over 2.5 sets at plus 150. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. We're back once again on either Friday night or Saturday morning to go through the Dubai final as well as the Santiago semis. Until next time, now, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the WNBA show, the NFL show, the MLB show. Get the point. And until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.